Okay, so first of all, this is the third video in which I have used carbon dioxide concentrations downloaded off of the NOAA website. And this is the same data that I used in the previous video, just this time I have zoomed in to a 10-year time period, starting from the beginning of the year 2000 and going till the end of 2010. And I have done this so I can look in more detail at the timings of the carbon dioxide seasonal cycles. Now, the maximum and minimum carbon dioxide concentrations in a year will occur at different times at different sites because the seasons occur at different times at different sites. So, for example, Barrow, which is the blue line, has its seasonal cycle set just before Mauna Loa, which is the orange line. So Barrow has its maximum about here, and then Mauna Loa has its maximum just afterwards. Then Barrow decreases just before Mauna Loa decreases. The Barrow minimum occurs just before the Mauna Loa minimum, and then Barrow begins to increase just before Mauna Loa begins to increase. And then this cycle continues. Because it's a cycle, there's technically no beginning to it, but this is just the easiest way of thinking about it. And this offset occurs because Barrow is further north and Mauna Loa is further south, though still in the Northern Hemisphere. And so the changes in the seasons occur at Barrow before the changes occur at Mauna Loa. Now, if we have a look at the South Pole, which is obviously in the Southern Hemisphere, and obviously the seasons in the Southern Hemisphere are the opposite way round to the way they are in the Northern Hemisphere. So the winter occurs in like July, August time in the Southern Hemisphere, and then the summer occurs in like December, January time in the Southern Hemisphere. So you can see that the South Pole minimum occurs at about the same time as the Barrow maximum. And you can also see the South Pole maximum occurs at about the same time as the Barrow and Mauna Loa minimums. So the South Pole minimum occurs in about March, which is like the autumn period in the Southern Hemisphere. And then the South Pole maximum occurs in about October, which is like the South Pole springtime. Then if we have a look at Samoa, this has the most unusual and variable seasonal cycle. Because it is on the equator, it gets from both the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere, so it's influenced by both seasonal cycles. But you can just about see that Samoa has a peak about the same time as Barrow, but then it also has another peak about the same time as the South Pole. So Samoa has a peak, the Northern Hemisphere peak, and also the Southern Hemisphere peak. So it gets two peaks every year, and this is pretty variable, but on average, what happens? Now, there is another way of looking at this. You can look at the average monthly carbon dioxide concentrations for each site. So I am going to highlight these values, then go to Insert and Pivot Table, and OK. Then I'm going to drag Date into here, and I am going to select Group, and then group it just by the months. Then I'm going to put the values in here, and then change that to average. Now these are the average monthly concentrations at Barrow. Now I'm going to type Barrow in here. Then I'm going to copy and paste this as values so I can plot it. I'm going to go to Insert and Line Chart. Then I'm also going to select all of these and go to Conditional Formatting and Top 10 Items. and change this to 1 and OK. So you can see that on average at Barrow in Alaska, the maximum carbon dioxide concentration occurs in April. Now if I highlight these again and go to conditional formatting and bottom 10 items, and again change this to 1 and then change it to yellow, you can see that on average the minimum occurs in August in Barrow, and this matches up with the chart. You can see the minimum in August here and then the maximum in April. Now if I add in the Mauna Loa data, I'm going to highlight all of this and go to Insert and Pivot Table, and this time I'm going to select Existing Worksheet and select a location. I'm going to select here and enter, and then enter again. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to select group and I'm going to select just the months and OK. Then I'm going to put the concentrations in here and change them to average. Then I'm going to copy and paste these as values. And I'm just going to write Mauna Loa up here. Then I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste just the formatting so I can get the conditional formatting. And then I'm going to copy these and paste it into the chart. Now you can see that the maximum in Mauna Loa occurs in May and the minimum in September, which is something that I have looked at before. And you can also see that the maximum and the minimum occur a month after the ones at Barrow. You can also see this in the chart. The Mauna Loa seasonal cycle occurs just after the one at Barrow. Now, if I add in the Samoa data, by highlighting all of this, and insert and pivot table, an existing worksheet and location, and I will put it here and enter again. Then I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to group these just with the months, and this time I'm going to change this so it starts at the beginning of the next year so that I don't have part of a seasonal cycle affecting the average. So I'm going to change this to 1974 and OK. And I'm going to add in the concentrations and change this to average. Then I am going to copy and paste this formatting again. And I'm going to label this Samoa. Then I'm going to copy and paste this as values. Then I'm going to add this into the chart. Okay, and there is Samoa. And you can see that at Samoa, the minimum concentration occurs in May and the maximum occurs in December. And that is on average. There's a lot of variability in Samoa, so these averages are hiding a lot of the detail. Now finally, I'm going to add in the South Pole by highlighting this data and going to Insert, Pivot Table, Existing Worksheet, Location. I'm going to put it in here. And then I'm going to go to Date and group it. And I'm going to change this to the beginning of the next year again. And OK. And then I'm going to add in the values and change these to the average concentrations. Then I will copy and paste the formatting. And I'm going to call this South Pole. Then I'm going to copy and paste these as values again. Then I'm going to select data and add in the South Pole data, and OK. And now I have the South Pole data as well, and you can see that the minimum on average occurs in March and the maximum on average occurs in October, and this is approximately the opposite way round to the two Northern Hemisphere sites. Okay, and that is it.